Yo, JD here, Limitless, and as you can see, back with some league racing once again on F1 2020, and this is TSRL, the leagues that I do every Friday, 8 PM, and this is round 3, Hanoi at Vietnam, and I'll probably be showing the championship standings coming into this race, and right now I'm just on such a good momentum within this league, and you can see by the standings there, if you haven't worked it out already, I managed to win both opening races, round 1 and round 2, so Australia and Bahrain. And when I was practicing for those races, I really didn't expect myself to do that well around there, because I was struggling, to be honest, particularly in qualifying. I was really struggling, but you can see here after Q1, this is a full qualifying format if you're new to this. So you've got Q1, Q2, Q3, setting a 32.7, and I just feel much more home around this track, which I know would sound a little bit crazy because this track is a brand new one. It's almost a street circuit, pretty much is, and typically I don't do well around those kind of tracks. But the pace was really good, and as usual, all you have to do is just get through into Q3, and that's when I really want to turn it up. But so far, apart from that Q1 lap, which was pretty good because I went out quite early, and the track evolution is quite substantial in full qualifying, I was very happy about that. My PB is a 31.9, believe it or not, which I actually posted the other day. So you've got Hanoi all week this week. But yeah, so I knew the pace was there, and I felt like this was probably the first track on the calendar. Although our qualifying record has been very good as we go in deep there, so we've had to abandon that lap. We started P1 Australia and P2 when I really didn't expect to fight for pole. But coming around here, I felt like if I did a 8 or 9 out of 10 lap, then I should have pole by a little bit of a distance, I would like to say, because I was being very consistent in the practice sessions coming up, doing the 31s quite consistently at one point here. And you can see this is on board my final Q3 lap because I'm not actually able, or not going to be able to do another lap after this. As you can see by the timer, no, I can't turn around when that's finished. And going through this sector 1 at 25.1, which is not mind-blowing or anything at all. My PB is a 24.9, so losing quite a bit of time there already, and quite conservative going round that carousel. And few people have talked about track limits, and unfortunately, if you want to maximize the lap, that's what everyone does around this track. Don't hate the play, hate the game. It's annoying, I know, but you have to do it, otherwise you're going to be very slow. Going to here, locking up once again, and running out onto the curb. So this is really not a great lap, and I haven't put a lap on the board here, so we're under a little bit of pressure. And you can see going a purple middle sector, so I was thinking about aborting this lap, but the thing is, if I do that, then it could put me at a really big risk for the last lap if I'm bad at. But going through this last sector, I decided if it felt really good, I was just going to continue and just throw everything I could at it. So this last sector felt pretty much almost perfect. So I decided to throw everything at it. Going across the line, it's a 32.4, almost a 3, which by my practice terms was a little bit disappointing because consistently was in the 31s, or it was a very low 32. So not perfectly ideal. But you're about to see now, I don't have any time, to get out anymore. And that was enough for P2. SHZ Crescito actually pipped me by 600ths of a second. So I was quite disappointed of that, to be honest. Although it's a good starting position for sure. And before the end of this video, I have to give a huge shout out to Gravity, the main sponsor and supporter of my channel. This is the best place to buy and sell Bitcoin in the UK, or if you're in Europe. This is something, a little bit of a hobby of mine that I've been involved with in the past few years, and they've been a huge supporter of me. If this is something you want to get involved in, then please check the referral link down below. I felt like I really wanted to get that pole position around there, and you can see we made a couple of mistakes on that lap as well. But the thing is, that was probably a smart choice to continue, because if I abandoned it and went into the pits, if I abandoned my next lap, I would have been starting in P10. So we're in a decent position. We've done the formation lap. We've got 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 outs here, and they're crucial to get a good start, and we get a pretty decent launch off the line. My main championship rival Martin is not having a good qualifying here going into turn 1. Remembering that patience, the word we always talk about, which people can tick off the list. I've said it now in this video already. Yeah, just don't do anything stupid, really, to be honest, going into there. But there's no need to do it. You can't win the race, but you can certainly lose it in the first corner. And we just done everything we needed to do. No damage or anything at all. Slotting in very nicely behind the Red Bull, who I know Cosito is on a pretty good momentum. I've seen him in other leagues. He's driving very, very well at this moment in time. So it's not going to be easy. But coming off here now, like we do at Bahrain, right now I'm just thinking, no, just stay with him, but don't need to overtake him at this point. No, the main thing is just to save the fuel, save the tyres, the tyre temperatures, and also the ERS management. Always focusing on that. I really do put a lot of time into knowing exactly how much I'm going to use when I'm deploying it and stuff as well. So we've got T10 Shadow behind me, BRT Oates, who has just come up from the tier 2 below because he was very, very quick, I think, and LCR Leopard makes a return once again. So the drivers in here are very, very good. We've got a few people missing, like JKB and a lot of the BGG people, because they forced a restart, so they actually have a race ban here, which is unfortunate for them. But in terms of me, it's kind of good news for me because I can maximize this result as much as I can. So right now, as I said, not trying to stay super close to him because you get affected by the dirty air a little bit more. So we don't need to attack him right now, and I'm just trying to stay in the DRS zone. But you can see, moving towards the end of lap 2 now, starting to get a little bit closer, but again, just leaving a nice, reasonable distance where if you brake sharply or something, as he keeps on struggling around that penultimate corner, you can see we've got plenty of extra rotation going around there. I absolutely love this last sector. It is by far the best sector on the game for me in terms of raw speed anyway. And we can see we set the fastest lap of the race in succession whilst doing that. But moving on to the end of lap 3 again, the gap is about the same between me and Cosito and T10 Shadow. I always say it's very, very hard to overtake on this game here now. And you can see the ERS, we've actually saved quite a bit of ERS as well. But now I started to think, now my pace is quite good. If I could get close enough, then it might be a good thing to overtake him, so I can dictate the pit stops, really, to be honest. Because if he's the car ahead, he would probably feel a bit more confident going an extra lap of me, because the one stop is actually pretty touch and go around here. It's really, really difficult, and I really think you need to be pitting minimum lap 8. Going through this carousel now, getting a very, very good rotation through here, not being affected by the dirty air too much at all. So I decided to actually punch it a little bit on the overtake button because I'm going to have DRS here quite easily. And getting on the DRS line now, is he going to make it difficult for me? No, I don't think he's going to make it too difficult because I think he's quite smart. He doesn't want to lose any time whatsoever. And spotting the braking point, very, very nicely. A little bit of a lock up, but that's not going to destroy my tyres too badly. And now it's the time to get underway. But again, don't need to push, don't need to use the ERS or anything at all, because it's pretty easy for him to stay in the DRS. I've said that so many times, and I probably say it so many videos. It's very easy to stay within the 1 second window, but it's very difficult to follow someone under half a second, in my opinion. And if you're following someone that close, you could be caught out by braking. The dirty air is a lot harder to manage at a distance, which I've had a few experiences myself. As we go across the line, we do a 37.2, obviously with the aid of the DRS and the overtake button then, but still, at this stage in the race, it's very good. But Cosito has actually gone out of the DRS zone, so I think he's made a small mistake, and that's what I was talking about. The dirty air is so much harder to follow, and we have got out the DRS zone straight away, and you can see I'm really trying hard to do it now. Checking my tyre wears, which is all good at this point, and this has played into my hands absolutely perfectly. We're going towards the middle of lap 6. T10 Shadow has actually now overtaken Cosito, and we've actually pulled out a few tenths advantage over them. So the race pace, as always, seems to be better than the qualifying speed. Although around this track, I think I definitely had the qualifying speed as well. And no, the gap is still staying roughly the same coming towards the end of lap 7. And I think those guys are going into the pits, and you can see on the left-hand side of the mini-map, Crucito and Shadow have both gone into the pits because they need to undercut me. They need to get back in my DRS zone, and I'm pulling away ever so slightly at this point here. So I'm in a really good position, got plenty of fuel, plenty of ERS, got a nice little gap behind me, and I am in the Williams, so I'm not going to be held by anyone whatsoever, and managing to spot that braking point very nicely going into this quite awkward pit lane. It's very, very awkward to exit this pit lane, but I really enjoy it as well. But you can see here,
back is hurting so much, man.
My back was hurting. I was actually complaining about my back quite a bit because I think sitting in that position for so long throughout the week, it can really tighten up your back. And I've taken some good advice from some people. I've actually started going to the gym, back to the gym again, do some deadlifts and stuff like that to really build up my back once again. But you can see here now, Crucito and Shadow have actually overtaken me. You can see that on the top left-hand screen. But due to the nature of this pit lane, we just go straight back past them. It's a very deceiving thing. When I first saw them go past me, I thought there's no way I'm going to get that past. But I've actually pretty much maintained the gap, and that's a good effort because my tyres were going off. But I did a very, very nice in-lap here. But moving on towards the end of lap 10, the gap is just extended by only about a tenth or something at all. So these kind of laps are probably the most important of this race because I think momentum is such a big thing when league racing. If you're starting to hunt someone down and you gain time in them, it almost feels like the guy you're hunting down. If you're being chased by someone and you're getting closed in on, it just feels like no matter what you do, that momentum just doesn't shift. It's just very, very hard to shift it. And I think a lot of that is just mental, to be honest. So right now I'm having the slight edge on Shadow, just pulling away by half a tenth a lap or something at this point. Managing to get the DRS on BGG Clone, who is in the same team as Shadow because Shadow is actually part of BGG. He's not in T10 or whatever team that used to be or stands for. So I don't think he'd be doing me too many favours, but he is on a completely different strategy. VRT Dom still out on the soft tyres. So I think he's really hoping for a safety car or something at this point. But BGG Clone, completely different strategy, hasn't pitted. He's probably going to go onto the hard tyres a little bit later here. But there's been no safety car or anything so far. Getting a very good exit on this Alfa Romeo as there's a few connection issues for people like Leopard, and I know others really suffered of it. Using overtake, make a little dummy to the left like I did in my last league race round here on LVA Brown, doing the same thing, and I don't think he's really going to fight this one like Crucito. That's not really worth him losing any time on the strategy he's doing, spotting the breaking point very nicely, and you can see we've actually extended the gap to Crucito and Shadow, who actually keep switching positions all the time here. And I think you'll be able to see on the mini-map, they are just going side by side, and the gap is over 2 seconds now. So this is playing into my favour absolutely beautifully right now. And you can see on the mini-map again, and then the Delta, something has happened. There's been a huge incident, actually, in fact, in between them. And that has actually brought out the virtual safety car, the first time in this race. And you can see once again Shadow has gone into the pit lane because I think he has lost his wing completely. So both of them tried to go side by side, wasn't giving any edge or quarter, and they both suffered in that. Whilst myself, we managed to get out of the DRS zone, and that's what happens when you're not involved in these little battles and you have your clean air. Then you can just focus entirely what you want to do. And Crucito has left the session. I think that's because he disconnected, but I think he does manage to get back in again. So Clone is behind me, and the next person really on the same strategy as me is VRT Oats, or Ox. I'm probably going to say that completely wrong. You can see the gap is about 4 seconds to him, and I think he's going to make a move on BGG Clone, which you can see here now. He makes that move, yes he does. And we'll just monitor that gap because I think he's got a lap older tyres than me or something, so that'll give a direct comparison. But moving on to the end of lap 15, you can see we just pulled away. The pace I'm doing here is really good, and I always make comparisons between myself and when I race 4 days earlier for WOR, and the pace I was doing here, it always feels like it's 2 or 3 tenths faster quite consistently, and that's just because I just have a race experience under my belt. I tweaked the setup a little bit more, and I'm just driving the track better. And right now, haven't got anyone in front of me. It is all to myself, and you can see the gap now. Because I think Oates has actually disconnected, and Zelchi is now taken over for him. And Zelchi put on the medium tyres, so I'm not sure why he has done that. And the gap is about 9.6 seconds. So I think he's got about the same life tyres as me, but he's hoping for a safety car to maybe come out or something. So he's doing something a little bit different. But the gap is about 9.9 seconds now. But moving on, or I think we're actually going to stay on board here for the next couple of laps, in fact, because these are just really kind of the laps I was driving when I was at my best around here. And you'll be able to pay attention to the Delta as well, and to Oates, who I think is back in the session now.
Now we're driving well.
We just, yeah, like I just said there, we were just driving in just such a nice rhythm at this point. And I don't think I've driven this way for quite a while. I've driven very well in this league so far. In Bahrain, particularly, I think I drove very, very good around there, especially to keep pace of Martin when I was on older tyres than him. And now I think we are fully unleashing the true pace that I have in the race pace. The first time I feel this season where I've really been able to show what I can do when I'm firing on all cylinders here. And you can just see that gap, despite him being on a softer tyre compound, is just going up at this point here. And no, you'll be able to see the lap time as we go across the line. And coming off this last score now, it's a 36, and then it's a 37.7 on the hard tyres at this stage. That is very, very strong on this compounder tyre, and almost 6 tenths quicker than I was doing in my social race around here and in WOR as well. So yeah, driving really, really good, and I think we're staying on board for another lap. Probably going to be a little bit of a longer video, but everyone seems to appreciate it. And again, it's not always about entertainment, which I hope people are, but it's about hopefully you can learn something from this. And I always want to show you, not just when I have good races and stuff, but I always want to show you the opposite end of the scale as well. So when I have a really bad race, or if I have a really, really good race and I'm driving my best, then I want to showcase that, because in reality, despite how well this race is going right now, it's very unlikely that we are going to have races like this every race in the season. And I'm mentally prepared for that. I'm not expecting it, and I'm going to try my best to not have that happen. But realistically, it's very, very difficult to have a flawless race every race, and like every round we've pretty much had so far here. And right now here, it just feels so good to just have the shackles really lifted from my back and just being able to express what I can really do. That was what I was thinking right now. I just wanted to show everyone when I have clean air of what I can do. That's what I really wanted to do. And going across the line again, it's a 37.8, so another lap, 2 laps in a row in the 37s. That is not easy to do, particularly when we need to use that much ERS. But moving on to lap 20, the gap has now gone up to 11 seconds, and it keeps increasing to Oates VRT, and also Shadows on a fairly new set of medium tyres. So it'll be interesting what that gap is. But when I was looking at the Delta, we still just kept on having the pace of everyone else, despite them having newer tyres than us. I was just driving at a different level of consistency and just race pace right now. And yeah, it's just when you're in the zone, I was just feeling right now that there was nothing that could stop me other than having a disconnection or something at all. I felt like I was driving on the limits. I wasn't being conservative here. I was really pushing it quite hard, in fact. And sometimes, especially around street tracks like Singapore, I feel I'm quite good as well. So maybe that's why I'm decent around here. But you have to be aggressive and committed, and if you're not, then you're gonna make damage and stuff like that. But you can see Zelchi, you saw it by there, he's actually gone into the pits now because he wasn't going to make it to the end on those medium tyres. And we're just going to skip through here. The gap is 15.9 seconds to VRT behind me, and we'll go skip on to the next lap again to end of lap 22. And the gap has gone up almost 1 second, or 1 second, well, because he's actually dropped down to P3 now. So VRT Dom is trying to go on the mediums to the end, and you can see we're still gaining time, doing a 38, very low 38s all the time. So very, very consistent, and I haven't made a mistake so far in this race here. And I think we're going to stay on board once again for another lap, because I think this is probably the most impressive lap that I did on the hard tyres here. And again, I know it might be a little bit boring and stuff when you have long videos like this, but I really hope people can learn from this. And people ask me all the time and stuff, so this is just me showcasing, and you can see really not abusing, I guess, but really taking advantage of the space available around there. Because if you just clip those curbs, it really unsettles you, and you just get you just lose an instant 2 tenths or something. So if you want to be fast, you have to take, unfortunately, that line around here. But hopefully the track limits could be a little bit stricter in future. Although I do think 2 wheels are still on the track. It's just because the curb is just so short. Going to here, not even a hint of a lock-up. A little bit of squiggle on the exit. Always kept on getting some very good traction. Learning my lesson from WR, where I just saved way too much fuel. Just the way I was doing it. I think I put it in lean in here, but now I'm keeping it in standard. So that's what I mean. Just these little tips. When you do a race, they really, honestly, they make such a big difference. They can make the difference between you finishing on the podium or you just winning outright. Those kind of things really do matter, in my opinion. And going around this last corner, another very committed lap. And going across the line, it's a 37.7 again, and you can see the gap is just extending ever more all the time on the guys in P2 and on the podium. So moving up here now, the gap is now 19.5 seconds. T10 Shadow, who's on less than 10 lap old mediums, I think. And we've pulled away another 2 seconds from him. So, yeah, right now it's... Yeah, to have this kind of drive, I haven't done a drive like this in such a long time. And I really wanted to do one of these drives. And because quite a lot of my races are normally me chasing someone down or getting someone on the last lap or something. I really wanted races where I just pull away from people, and just the consistency is too much, and that's why I want to start doing. And I know people probably watching this would rather have a little bit more exciting races, but for me, this is great for me. And the gap we have right now, I really wanted to get it over 20 seconds. You can see I'm pushing quite hard for that as my tyre indicator has now come on. It just feels super good. And the only thing now, I think even if we disconnected, the AI would probably be fast enough to get round. So it's looking like an almost certainty, unless I crash or my wheel disconnects and I destroy my car. But we're still pushing pretty hard going through into this last sector. I just want to see what kind of I could do. Going to lead just to help with the traction ever so slightly, because the tyres are really going off. We did a green first sector here and still pushing it, going through and then into this penultimate corner, going down here, first give it a little bit of extra rotation, and then going into the last corner. It has been an absolute masterclass drive, a 36.6 final lap as well. And yeah, that's one of my most dominant drives I've ever done, and I put myself in the right position, a good qualifying spot, and then overtaking at the right time in the first stint, got out the DRS zone. Then they had incidents and I didn't make mistakes. I took my time when overtaking people. So far this season has pretty much been perfect in terms of execution, but like I said, I know some races are probably not going to go my way, and some things will happen. I will probably make mistakes, and there'll probably be some tough times, because that's just how league racing is, or life in general is. So I am prepared for that, and it's all about how you can bounce back from those kind of things. So far it has been a perfect season. 3 out of 3, 75 points in this season so far, and you should be able to see the standings now on the screen. Thank you so much for the support as always. It is absolutely incredible. Make sure you tune in tomorrow to TSRL China where it should be a very, very interesting race, in fact. So thank you so much, and I'll catch you soon. Peace.